The galaxy was burning. One by one, stars that had once shined with the lights of great civilizations were now covered with smoke and ruins. Planets that had stood proud for thousands of years were reduced to ashes. Fleets that had once carried the banners of mighty empires now drifted silently as broken wreckage. The enemy had come from the far edge of the galaxy, silent, cold, and merciless. No one knew where they came from or why they fought. Some said they were machines created long ago, forgotten by their makers. Others believed they were a species that had erased every emotion from their hearts. Whatever they were, they did not stop. They did not speak. They only destroyed. The Galactic Council had tried everything. The Council was made of the oldest and strongest races of the galaxy, wise ones, warriors, engineers, and healers. For centuries they had guided peace among the stars. Now they fought together against this endless wave of destruction. At first the Council was confident. Their fleets were massive, their weapons advanced, their armies trained. But the enemy adapted too quickly. Every time the Council found a way to fight back, the enemy found a way to counter it. Battles that seemed won were turned into crushing defeats. World after world fell. Entire races vanished into history. Fear spread across the stars faster than the enemy itself. The proud Zalari with their great crystal cities surrendered after losing half their homeworld. The Venar, known for their sharp wings and unmatched fleets, were reduced to hiding in asteroid caves. Even the tall ancient Meridians, who had once believed no army could ever break their strongholds, were now begging the Council for retreat. It seemed there was no hope left, and in the middle of this despair, one question was whispered again and again across the stars. What if the humans had survived? The galaxy remembered them, though it had been many centuries since they had last walked among the stars. Humans had once been strange allies, loud, reckless, always fighting, always pushing forward. They had fewer ships, weaker weapons, and shorter lives than most other species. Yet they had a spark no one else could match. They were unpredictable. They never surrendered, even when logic said they should. They turned hopeless battles into victories, not because of strength, but because of spirit. But the humans were gone. Long ago, in a war no one fully understood, humanity had burned itself. Their homeworld, Earth, had vanished in fire. Their colonies were lost. Their fleets scattered and broken. Some said the humans had destroyed themselves. Others said an ancient enemy had wiped them out. Whatever the truth was, the galaxy believed one thing: humanity was extinct. And so, as the enemy spread across the stars, the Council no longer hoped for miracles. The last great defense was prepared near the rim of the galaxy. There the Council gathered what remained of its fleets. Thousands of ships from dozens of species stood ready in silence. Their mission was simple: hold the line for as long as possible. If they failed, the enemy would reach the heart of the galaxy. The enemy came in a tide of black metal and burning fire. The battle was terrible. Planets shook. Suns trembled. Whole fleets disappeared in minutes. For every enemy ship destroyed, 10 more appeared. The Council's proud armada fought with courage, but it was not enough. One Zalari commander shouted to his crew, "Hold the shields. We cannot break." But his ship was torn apart by a storm of fire. A Venar pilot screamed through the comms, "We are surrounded. There is no way out." His last words were cut off as his ship exploded. On the Council's command ship, Elder Theron of the Meridians watched in silence. His 4 eyes burned with sorrow as he whispered, "So this is how it ends." The defense line collapsed. Survivors fled into the dark. The galaxy was broken. The enemy had proven unstoppable, and once again whispers began to spread. If only the humans were here. It was not just soldiers who remembered them. Farmers on distant worlds, engineers in quiet stations, traders who had once seen humans laugh and argue. All remembered. Humanity had always been different. Strange, stubborn, impossible. But when they fought, they made others believe they could fight too. Now there was no one left. The Council, scattered and broken, gathered in a hidden station far from the battlefield. Their leaders sat around a great table of light. Faces of sorrow looked at one another. The Zalari delegate spoke first. "It is over. We cannot win," the Venar replied sharply. "Then what do you suggest? Surrender? Hide in the dark until they find us." The Meridian elder lowered his head. "There is no hiding. There is no surrender. They will not accept peace. They only destroy." Silence filled the chamber. Finally, a young voice spoke. It was not a leader, but a minor scribe from a distant world. He trembled as he said the words. "There is one chance." All eyes turned toward him. He swallowed hard. "The humans. There are stories. Some say a few survived. A ship here, a traveler there. No proof, but what if it is true? What if they are not gone?" The council members looked at each other. For a moment there was a flicker of hope. But then the Zalari shook his head. "Stories will not save us. Legends cannot fight our battles." The Meridian Elder raised his hand. "But legends once did. Humanity was not like us. They were fire and flesh. If even one remains, it could change everything." The debate went on long into the night. Most believed it was foolish, but a few believed it was worth trying. In the end, the council was too weak to argue. They had nothing else left. And so in the dark of the galaxy, a secret search began. Old records were opened. Forgotten maps were studied. Fleets too small to fight were sent to explore ruins, abandoned systems, and silent stations. Most found nothing, but on a forgotten mining moon, far from the paths of war, a group of desperate refugees stumbled upon something hidden deep within the rock. It was not alien. It was not old. It was human, a ship broken, buried, and silent. Yet inside, sealed in the heart of the vessel, was a stasis chamber still glowing with faint light, and within it, a human. The galaxy believed humanity was defeated. But they were wrong. Something was about to awaken. The mining moon was dark and lonely. Its tunnels stretched deep into stone where machines once dug for ore. Now silence ruled those empty passages. Only a few refugees lived there, hiding from the endless war. They were not soldiers. They were survivors. Zalari engineers, Venar traders, and even children from small colonies. All had come to this forgotten place, hoping the enemy would never find them. One day, while exploring an abandoned tunnel, a young Venar named Kellen noticed something strange. His wings brushed against cold metal buried in stone. At first he thought it was just an old mining machine, but when he cleared the dust and rubble, his sharp eyes widened. "This is no drill," he whispered. "This is a ship." Word spread quickly among the refugees. Soon a dozen of them gathered in the tunnel, shining lights across the strange surface. The hull was scorched but strong. Alien symbols were absent. Instead, there were markings none of them recognized. Simple lines, faded but still there. "It is not ours," said a Zalari engineer, running his hand across the metal. "Too rough, too primitive." An older Meridian bent down, his heavy frame shaking the ground. His four eyes studied the markings with deep thought. "I have seen this before," he murmured. The crowd leaned closer. "These symbols, they are human." The word sent a ripple of shock through the group. "Impossible," one of the Zalari said quickly. "Humans are gone." "Everyone knows this. Gone?" The Meridian's voice was low but firm. "No, forgotten, yes, but gone? Perhaps not." The discovery filled the refugees with both fear and hope. For days they worked together, clearing the stone and dirt that buried the ship. It was old but still intact. The design was different from their sleek vessels. Its edges were sharp, its armor thick, its lines simple but strong. "This is not a warship," Kellen said as they entered through a broken hatch. "Too small? Perhaps a scout or an escape craft." Inside, the air was stale. Lights flickered faintly, powered by a core that refused to die even after centuries. Dust floated in the still air as they moved deeper, and then, in the heart of the ship, they found it. A chamber. Glass walls glowed softly. Inside, a figure lay still. It was human. The man was tall compared to most of them, his skin pale from endless sleep. His chest rose and fell in the faintest rhythm, showing he was still alive. His face was calm, as if he were only dreaming. The chamber's screen displayed old letters. The Zalari engineer tilted her head, confused. "I cannot read this language." But the Meridian elder who had studied ancient records spoke slowly. "It says, Captain Elias Ward." The name echoed in the chamber. A human. After all these centuries, after all the galaxy believed there was one left. The refugees argued for hours about what to do. Some were afraid. Humans were dangerous, one said. They started wars. They brought chaos. Others were hopeful. They were also saviors, another replied. When no one else fought, they did. We cannot win this war without them. Kellen, the young Venar, spoke firmly. Look around you. Our homes are ashes. Our fleets are gone. We hide in the dark like insects. If there is even a chance this human can help us, we must try. The Meridian Elder nodded. The council once said humans were fire. Unpredictable, untamed. But fire is what we need now. At last, they agreed. With great care, they worked to awaken the chamber. Lights brightened. Machines hummed. The glass slowly opened with a hiss of ancient air. The human stirred. At first, he only twitched, his body weak from long sleep. His eyes blinked open, striking, sharp, filled with confusion. His breath quickened. He coughed, trying to rise. The refugees stepped back, unsure what to do. The human's voice was rough, deep. "Where am I?" They exchanged glances. The Meridian stepped forward. "You are among survivors. You have been asleep for a very long time." The human's gaze moved from one alien face to another. His expression showed no fear, only calm curiosity. "Aliens," he whispered. Then more firmly, "I'm Elias Ward, Captain Earthfleet. Who are you?" The Zilari bowed slightly. "We are what remains of the galaxy, and you, human, are the last of your kind." The news hit Ward like a blow. He listened as they explained the war, the rise of the enemy, the fall of world after world. His jaw tightened as they spoke of the Council's defeat. "And Earth?" he asked quietly. Silence followed. No one wanted to answer. Finally, the Elder spoke. "Gone, long ago." Ward closed his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. The weight of centuries pressed on him. His home, his people, his world, all gone. He was alone. But when he opened his eyes again, there was fire in them. "Then I am what's left," he said, "and I will not let this galaxy fall." The refugees stared at him. They saw no despair, only determination. Days passed. Ward recovered quickly, his human strength surprising the others. Though their medicine helped, much of his recovery came from sheer will. He asked for details about the enemy. He studied their weapons, their ships, their strategies. The refugees explained what they knew, though it was little. "They adapt too fast," said Kellen. "Every time we find a weakness, it disappears in the next battle." Ward frowned. "Machines, logic-driven, predictable in their own way. That means we don't fight them with strength. We fight them with chaos." The Zilari engineer tilted her head. "Chaos?" Ward smiled faintly. "Yes, surprise, tricks. Humans never win fair battles. We win the impossible ones." He began training them. Though they were civilians, he taught them to fight like soldiers. He showed them how to use small ships for fast strikes, how to hide in places no enemy would expect, how to use limited resources in clever ways. At first, the refugees doubted him, but soon they began to see results. Small raids against enemy patrols succeeded. Supplies were stolen. Communications were disrupted. For the first time in years, the refugees tasted victory. Hope spread like fire. Rumors began to flow through hidden channels across the stars. "A human fights again," they whispered. "Humanity is not gone." And though the Council had thought all was lost, though the galaxy believed humanity extinct, one man now stood ready to prove them wrong. Captain Elias Ward had awakened. The galaxy had not seen the last of humans. Captain Elias Ward stood at the edge of the mining moon's hangar, staring at the stars. The galaxy felt both familiar and strange. Once, long ago, humanity had dreamed of those same stars. They had fought, traded, laughed, and lived among them. Now most of humanity was gone, and he was alone. The refugees watched him quietly. To them, he was a legend come alive, a living piece of history. But to Ward, he was simply a soldier who had woken too late. He clenched his fists. One man cannot win a war, he thought. But one man can start a fight. The next morning, Ward called the refugees together. They gathered in the wide cavern that served as their home. Children clung to parents, engineers sat with tired faces, and old soldiers stood ready to listen. Ward's voice was firm but calm. "I know what you're thinking," he began. "You're thinking, what can one human do? What can one soldier do when fleets of thousands already failed?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. His words were true. Ward's gaze swept across them. "I'll tell you what one human can do. We can fight in ways no enemy expects. We can turn fear into courage. We can take the smallest chance and turn it into victory. That's how my people survived for centuries." A young Venar raised his hand nervously. "But the enemy is endless. They adapt to every move we make. How can you stop that?" Ward smiled faintly. "Machines adapt to patterns. They calculate. They predict. But humans? We don't follow patterns. We don't fight the way we're supposed to. That's our strength. The Meridian Elder stepped forward. You mean chaos, Ward nodded. Yes, chaos. Training began the same day. Ward divided the refugees into small groups. They had few weapons and fewer ships, but Ward taught them to use what they had. He showed them how to turn mining drones into bombs, how to hide signals inside asteroids, and how to trick enemy scanners with false readings. At first, the refugees struggled. Their hands were clumsy, their hearts heavy. But Ward pushed them again, he shouted as Kellen, the young Vaynar, missed a target during flight training. I cannot do it, Kellen snapped, frustration in his voice. You can, Ward replied sharply. You just don't believe it yet. The moment you give up, you've already lost. Slowly, their skills grew. The Zalari engineers built traps out of scrap metal. The Meridians learned to fight with strength and patience. Even the children helped, carrying messages, fixing tools, or learning basic survival. Every day was hard. Every night was filled with exhaustion. But there was also something new in their hearts. Hope. Weeks later, Ward decided they were ready for their first mission. An enemy patrol had been spotted near a nearby system. The machines were hunting for survivors, scanning every moon and planet. We hit them first, Ward said. The refugees looked shocked. Attack them? One Zalari whispered. But we are too few. Ward's eyes hardened. That's exactly why they won't expect it. And that's why it will work. The plan was simple but daring. A small group of ships would hide inside an asteroid field. When the enemy patrol entered, they would trigger charges hidden among the rocks, creating chaos. In the confusion, the refugees would strike quickly and vanish. It was dangerous. Failure meant death. But Ward's voice carried confidence. We don't fight for victory today. We fight to prove we can fight at all. The day of the mission arrived. Refugee pilots strapped into old ships, their hands shaking. Ward sat in the lead vessel, calm but focused. Remember, he said over the comms, do not fight their way. Fight our way. Be fast, be clever, and never give them what they expect. The enemy patrol entered the asteroid field. Dark ships glided silently, scanning with cold precision. Ward gave the signal. Explosions ripped through the rocks, sending fragments spinning. Enemy scanners screamed with false alarms. Confusion spread through their formation. Now, Ward shouted. The refugee ships darted out from hiding. They fired quickly, striking weak points Ward had predicted. One enemy ship broke apart in flames. Another spun out of control and crashed against an asteroid. The battle was short but fierce. Refugees cheered as the last enemy ship fell. For the first time in years, they had won. Back at the mining moon, the victory filled everyone with energy. Songs were sung, laughter returned, and children played without fear for the first time in memory. The Zalari engineer, tears in her eyes, said to Ward, You gave us back something we thought was gone. Ward only shook his head. No, I reminded you of what you already had, courage. But not everyone believed. One night, in the quiet of the tunnels, a Vaynar elder approached Ward. His feathers were gray, his wings folded with age. You are giving them hope, the elder said. But what happens when hope breaks again? One victory means nothing in this war. Ward looked at him steadily. You're right. One victory is small, but hope is never small. Hope spreads, it grows, and when enough people believe, the impossible becomes possible. The elder studied him for a long time, then bowed his head. Perhaps the galaxy truly needs humans again. More missions followed, each one bolder than the last. Ward led strikes against supply ships, ambushed scouting fleets, and stole enemy codes. The refugees grew stronger, faster, braver. Rumors spread beyond the mining moon. Hidden colonies whispered, the humans fight again. Ships in hiding raised their heads. Old soldiers picked up weapons the enemy noticed too. Patrols doubled. Searches became harsher. They wanted to crush this spark before it spread. Ward expected this. Good, he said with a grim smile. That means we're making them nervous. Yet deep inside, Ward wrestled with doubt. At night, when the tunnels were quiet, he sat alone and thought of Earth. He remembered the oceans, the cities, the voices of people long gone. Why me? He wondered. Why was I the one left alive? He had not chosen to be the last human. He had not asked to carry the weight of an entire species. But here he was. The galaxy was broken and everyone looked to him. I'm just one man, he whispered to the stars. But if that's all humanity has left, Then I'll be enough. The refugees did not see his doubts. They only saw his strength. To them, Elias Ward was more than a man. He was a symbol, and symbols can change the galaxy. Their next mission would test everything they had learned. A distress signal reached the mining moon. A small colony was under attack, its shields failing. Ward gathered his fighters. "We're going," he said. The Zalari engineer frowned. "But it's a trap. The enemy uses false signals to lure survivors." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's not. But if it isn't and we do nothing, innocent lives will be lost. Humans don't walk away from that." No one argued. They launched into the stars once again. The galaxy had thought humanity was defeated. But as Captain Elias Ward led his fleet into danger, one truth became clear. The war was not over. Not while a human still fought. The distress signal had been real. When Captain Elias Ward and his small fleet arrived, they saw a colony under siege. Enemy ships swarmed like black shadows around the planet, firing endlessly at the weakening shields. Refugee transports tried to escape, but many were destroyed before they could flee. The refugees with Ward hesitated. Their ships were old, their weapons weak. Against so many enemies, they stood no chance. Ward's voice came calmly over the comms. "Remember what I told you. We do not fight their way. We fight our way." The plan was reckless. The plan was dangerous. But it was human. Ward split the fleet into smaller groups. One group darted close to the enemy, drawing fire and confusion. Another group released drones filled with false signals, making the enemy believe dozens of ships were attacking. Ward himself led the main strike, weaving through the chaos with skill that left even the enemy scanners struggling to predict his moves. The refugees followed his orders with growing courage. They destroyed the enemy's power relays, disabled their sensors, and turned the battle into a storm of confusion. By the end, the colony was saved. The enemy retreated, leaving behind burning wrecks. The survivors on the planet looked up and saw the ships that had rescued them. Among the voices over the comms, one word spread like fire. Human. The news traveled faster than light. Across hidden channels and secret networks, the story spread. A human has returned. A human fights again. Worlds that had lost hope began to rise. Colonies that once hid in fear started resisting. Small fleets that had surrendered now dared to strike back. And everywhere the same question was asked. If one human can do this, what could many have done? For centuries, the galaxy had believed humanity extinct. Now they knew at least one had survived. And if one had survived, perhaps others could be found. The Galactic Council, broken and scattered, heard the rumors. Some dismissed them as lies meant to inspire false hope. Others were curious, wondering if the impossible could be true. In a hidden chamber, council leaders gathered. The Zalari delegate spoke first, her crystal skin shimmering faintly. "I have heard the reports. A colony saved by a human. Enemy ships destroyed. Is this truth or just a tale?" The Meridian Elder replied, his deep voice carrying weight. "The reports come from too many places to be lies. Something stirs in the stars. And if it is human, then we cannot ignore it." The Venar leader spread his wings uneasy. "But what if it is true? What if humanity returns? Will they lead us or will they burn us again as they once did themselves?" The chamber fell silent. The council feared humans as much as they longed for them. But fear or not, the galaxy was changing. Meanwhile, Ward's victories continued. He led daring raids against enemy strongholds. He taught more colonies how to fight using chaos, surprise, and courage. He built alliances between species that once distrusted each other. Everywhere he went, he reminded them of the one thing they had forgotten: resistance. Yet Ward never claimed to be more than he was. To every new ally, he spoke the same words: "I am not a savior. I am just a soldier." Humanity was never about one person. It was about what we all carried inside. And now I will pass it to you. But the enemy was not blind. The machines began to change their tactics. They hunted harder, searching for the human anomaly. Traps were set. Whole systems were baited. The enemy feared what one human could inspire, and they wanted him gone. One night, as Ward studied star maps, Kellen, the young Venar pilot, approached him. "They are coming for you," Kellen said. "Every victory makes you a larger target. You cannot carry this alone." Ward looked at him, tired but steady. "I know. That's why I won't carry it alone. I'll teach others to fight. Even if I fall, the fire won't die. Kellen's wings trembled. You speak like you expect to fall. Ward smiled faintly. Every soldier expects it. But hope is stronger than death. The galaxy began to change in ways the enemy had not predicted. Fleets once divided by old rivalries now fought side by side. Colonies that had given up now struck back with daring raids. Refugees became fighters. Children grew into messengers. Engineers became weaponsmiths. And at the heart of it all was the whisper. The human fights with us. It was not just hope. It was unity. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was not scattered races fighting alone. They were becoming something new. A coalition. Bound together by the memory of humanity's defiance. Still, doubts remained. In one hidden station, a group of council leaders finally requested to meet the human. Ward agreed. When he entered the chamber, silence fell. His presence was strange, different but not frightening. He stood tall, his eyes sharp, his uniform patched but worn with pride. The Zalari delegate studied him carefully. So it is true. A human lives, Ward nodded. I live, but I am not humanity. I'm only one man. The Vanar leader leaned forward. Then why do you fight, human? Why not hide as we have done? Ward's voice was steady. Because hiding never wins wars. Because surrender only makes the enemy stronger. And because humans never stop fighting. Not when there is even one chance left. The Meridian Elder's eyes glowed faintly. Then you would lead us? Ward shook his head. Not lead. Teach. Humanity was never about following one man. It was about each person finding the strength to rise even when the world says they cannot. The chamber was silent, and then, slowly, the leaders bowed their heads. The return of humanity was not the return of millions of humans. It was the return of their spirit. Ward's fire lit the galaxy. Every race carried a piece of it now. And together, they began to turn the war. But the enemy was preparing as well. Reports came of vast fleets gathering near a critical star system, the gateway to the heart of the galaxy. If it fell, no coalition could stop them. Ward studied the reports, his face grim. This is it, he said quietly. The battle that will decide everything. The refugees who had first found him stood by his side. Kellen, the Zalari engineer, the Meridian Elder, all had grown into fighters, leaders, and symbols in their own right. Kellen spoke with determination. Then we fight with you. Until the end. Ward looked at them all and felt something he had not felt in centuries. Pride. Humanity might have fallen, but its flame now burned in 1,000 hearts across the stars. The galaxy believed humans were gone. But when they stood together, united in courage, they were all a little human. Ward raised his hand, pointing at the stars where the final battle waited. Then let's show them. Humanity has returned, not in numbers but in spirit. And spirit is what wins wars. The fleets gathered, the coalition formed, and as ships launched into the dark, whispers echoed across the stars. The human leads us. The human fights with us. The human will not fall. The enemy thought humanity defeated. But the galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was back. The enemy's shadow spread across the galaxy like a storm. Entire star systems had already fallen, and the coalition forces prepared for what everyone whispered might be their final stand. The battlefield would be the Epsilon Gate system, a vast region where a network of wormholes connected dozens of trade routes. Whoever controlled Epsilon Gate would decide the future of the galaxy. The Galactic Council gathered in silence, their faces heavy with fear. Ancient leaders who once spoke with pride now lowered their voices. For centuries they had ruled the stars, but now they had been reduced to begging for survival. The enemy fleet was larger, faster, and merciless. But there was one difference this time. At the center of the council table stood a human, Captain Elias Ward. He was not dressed in shining armor, nor did he have advanced weapons. His uniform was old, his ship outdated, and his eyes carried the weight of endless struggle. Yet the aliens around him felt something they had not felt in centuries. Hope. Ward looked at the council and spoke in a steady voice. You all believe this is the end. But I tell you, humanity has lived through the end more times than we can count. And every time we rise again, the enemy thinks strength wins wars. They are wrong. What wins wars is the refusal to give up. Some council members still doubted. A tall Avrix elder spoke, his wings trembling. But Captain Ward, their fleet is too strong. They outnumber us 5-1. How can your people's courage fight against such numbers? Ward gave a small smile. Courage doesn't fight numbers. Courage makes numbers meaningless. The word spread across the chamber like fire. For the first time, many species began to believe that perhaps they could still fight. The battle begins. When the day of battle came, the stars around Epsilon Gate were filled with lights. The enemy's fleet poured through the wormholes like a tidal wave of fire. Their warships were sharp and endless, dark shapes moving with deadly precision. The coalition fleet looked small in comparison, ships patched together, some old, some barely working. Yet among them, humans stood at the command, giving orders, organizing formations. What the coalition lacked in strength, they made up for in creativity. Ward's ship, the Resolute, moved at the front. His voice carried across the comms, calm and unshaken. Remember, we don't fight them head-on. We fight them where they don't expect it. Strike, vanish, and strike again. Make them chase shadows. The first clash shook the galaxy. Enemy cannons lit the void, destroying several coalition ships instantly. But instead of despair, the coalition responded with traps. Mines hidden in asteroid fields exploded in sudden bursts. Small fighter crafts darted like insects, striking weak points and then disappearing before the enemy could lock onto them. The enemy grew frustrated. They had always won by overwhelming force, crushing opponents directly. But now they faced a war of confusion. Human-led tactics turned the battlefield into chaos. The coalition moved like a living storm, always shifting, never where the enemy expected. The turning point, despite the clever plans, the enemy's numbers began to press harder. One wormhole after another opened, pouring more ships into the system. Coalition losses mounted, and it seemed the tide would soon overwhelm them. On the bridge of the Resolute, alarms rang, and the ship shook under enemy fire. Officers shouted. Reports came in of fleets breaking apart, and despair began to creep into the voices of the coalition. Ward stood firm, his eyes locked on the map of the battlefield. They think we are cornered, he said. Good. Let them believe it. He ordered a retreat, not to run, but to lure the enemy deeper into the Epsilon Gate's unstable region. There, the wormhole currents were dangerous, unpredictable. Most commanders avoided them. But Ward knew this was exactly where humanity thrived. Facing danger others would never dare. The coalition fleet followed, though some commanders whispered they were heading to their doom. The enemy chased with confidence, believing victory was certain. That was when Ward gave the order. Activate the collapse charges. Hidden charges, placed earlier during small raids, detonated across the battlefield. Wormhole currents twisted violently, tearing the formation of the enemy fleet apart. Ships collided. Some pulled into unstable portals, vanishing forever. For the first time, the enemy was not the hunter. They were the prey. The final strike. Ward knew this was the moment. He opened the comms to every ship in the coalition fleet. His voice, steady and unyielding, echoed across the stars. Listen to me. The galaxy believed humanity was gone. They believed the flame had died. But we are here. And as long as we fight, that flame will never go out. Today we don't fight for survival alone. We fight to prove that no darkness can erase the will to rise again. The words reached every commander, every pilot, every soldier. Across the battlefield, alien warriors lifted their heads, inspired. Ships turned. Broken fleets rejoined the fight, and courage burned where despair once lived. The coalition launched one last assault, striking with everything they had. Ward led from the front, his ship charging through enemy lines, guns blazing. The Resolute suffered heavy damage, but it refused to fall. One by one, coalition ships tore through the weakened enemy. Explosions lit the void like 1,000 suns. The enemy, once so certain of victory, began to break. Some tried to flee, but the coalition pursued with relentless determination. At last, the great enemy flagship, the core of their command, was surrounded. Ward's ship delivered the final strike, its cannons piercing the flagship's heart. The explosion shook the system, and with it, the enemy's will collapsed. The battle was over. Against all odds, the coalition had won. A new dawn silence fell across the battlefield. Wreckage floated among the stars, but within that silence came something greater: hope. On the council world, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Entire civilizations celebrated. Species who had given up now lifted their banners again. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. Defeat turned into triumph. Despair turned into courage. And at the center of it all was a single human who refused to surrender. Ward stood on the bridge of the damaged Resolute, watching the stars. His crew gathered around him, tired but smiling. The alien officers who once doubted him now bowed their heads in respect. "You saved us," one said softly. Ward shook his head. "No, humanity saved us, not because we are stronger or smarter, but because we never stop fighting. That is what it means to be human." The words would be remembered for generations. Across the galaxy, stories spread of the battle at Epsilon Gate. Children of countless worlds grew up hearing the tale of the human who returned when all hope was gone. The galaxy had believed humans were defeated. But they were wrong. Humanity's flame burned brighter than ever, a flame that would guide the stars into a new age, and so, a simple truth was written in the hearts of every living being. As long as a human stands, the galaxy will never fall silent again.